Welcome to this Wait a Fire podcast. That's right, another episode. This is already more than we managed in 2018, I think. I'm Andy, and who else is on the call today?
I'm Ross.
And I'm Chaz.
Fantastic. We've got a select group of the Dead Zone specialists, actually, because just the three of us today, because we are talking about Dead Zone Escalation. How about that? Excited?
Yeah, can I also mention my cat Jerome's here? I think he plays Dead Zone more than, Kev.
Fair enough. Hi, Jerome. Thank you for joining us. We've got Dead Zone Escalation coming out. So out on the 3rd of June, the next installment of the Containment protocols. So these are the annual updates for Dead Zone, of course. And we've all been involved to some extent in working on this book, haven't we? So it's been a long old process for all of us. And we've been allowed a little bit of a sneak peek to release to you of some of the factions. So we have the GCPS. I'll talk about them. The Rebs. You're going to talk about them, aren't you, Ross? And
Go Rebs!
Go Rebs. You sound like Brian Novak. And Chaz, you're going to be talking about the Veermen, everybody's favourite.
Yep.
So it's worth mentioning as well that a lot of the other Dead Zone podcasts and YouTube channels will also be doing some stuff on the other factions. So check out all of those. So that's Family of Gamers 777, Frantic Gamers, Dead Zone the podcast, and Dread Path Zone if Tyler ever pulls his finger out.
Yeah, don't listen to them. Just listen to Wait a Fire.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, that's obvious. But, they're already listening to us. Otherwise, they haven't heard what we just said.
Well, no one's heard that because no one listens to us.
No,
we never put on podcasts.
Never. Right, without further ado, shall we talk about what's coming up then? So, what are you guys most excited about? What's the things you like, looking forward to from Escalation?
I like the missions.
What new missions? Are there any new missions?
Oh, yes. Well, we're not talking about them.
We're not, but we can talk about it in brief.
I like the change in missions, that it's more complex and sort of dynamic.
What, not just shooting people?
Yeah. It's not just shooting people or sitting on an objective. You have
it's abstract, isn't it? Objectives in the current game, aren't they? So, yeah, they'll add an extra element to it, I think, which should be quite exciting.
I like the fact that you now have sort of like hackers.
I've just given a sneak peek reveal. Dun, dun, dun.
I wish I had a soundboard.
How about you, Chaz? What do you think's most excited about?
It's a couple of things. The big games and the changes to the army lists. I think there's a lot of really interesting changes that are going to open up a lot of new army builds. I'm quite looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we're going to have a couple of factions we'll talk about here with the Veermen and the Rebs. We've got quite a lot of new models, but actually even the GCPS, the changes that are in there aren't anywhere near as big on the face of it, but they're quite subtle and they'll make quite a big difference in how people play, I think.
Yep.
So great. Without further ado, let's talk about some GCPS then, shall we? So, the Galactic Co-Prosperity Sphere.
Say that again.
The Galactic Co-Prosperity Sphere. So what have they got new? Well, what have they got in the leader section that's new? The answer to that is nothing. Literally nothing. Sorry. No, but they haven't got anything new in the leader section, but they don't need it because they've got some excellent leaders as it is. What they do have, though, is some changes. So they've had probably some of the least changes of one of the factions for the GCPS. It's probably because they're fairly new. They're pretty good. They're very strong, actually, if you play them. And you both have played them or against them, haven't you? So what's the key things they do is bring lots of numbers, isn't it? And lots of weapon options. So
especially if you bring crap like me with recruits.
Well, yeah, they're perfect. 6 points for a model to just land on objectives. That's fine.
No, they sometimes get lucky and hit things.
Occasionally. occasion.
It's very rare, but
So the key thing is there that the troops, the recruits, the Marine, veteran, they all stay exactly the same. They're not gaining any troops, so they all no differences there. So the differences that come in the GCPS list are in the specialists. So we've got Corporation Engineer. So Engineer, I think it's fair to say, wasn't particularly well loved in previous renditions of Dead Zone. I don't think anyone really took him very often. Although, or ever. Yeah, I mean, you could. It was sort of worth taking him because he would allow you to have a sentry gun. He wasn't probably that great and was a little bit expensive. So he used to be 13 points. He's now exactly the same in stats and everything, except he's come down just to 9 points, which is quite a big reduction, actually, in cost. And the other thing he has gained is this ability called Hacker. So you mentioned that before, Ross. What does Hacker do?
It allows you to interact easier with the new objectives.
Yeah, so it doesn't do anything at all on itself, but in certain missions, it could be the difference between scoring victory points and not scoring victory points, or certainly scoring them much more easily. So you'll see that in a lot of the lists, a lot of the engineers and specialists gain the Hacker ability, whereas other troops, so it sort of give a special role, as it were, to these models. So
it basically turns the engineers and the normal troops. The normal troops are like the apes at the beginning of 2001 smashing at the monolith, whereas the engineers actually typing on the computer.
Okay, not perhaps the most subtle analogy I've ever heard. But okay. On the same vein, the Marine specialist in the troops also stays exactly the same, except he also gains Hacker. He gains it for actually 0 points, so he doesn't gain anything at all. He gains the Hacker ability, but he's cost the same. And the reason for that is you can now take a Marine specialist without upgrading his weapon, and he's basically just like a computer hacker. So his now default is, I'm a normal guy, but I've got a little portable laptop with me that I plug into a device if the mission allows that to happen. And if not, then I'm just a normal guy like I was before. I'm still got the same stats essentially as a.
I think of it more as that spike that RoboCop has that comes out of his hand. That's how he accesses terminals.
It could be. I mean, that might be more suited to one of the other factions than maybe the GCPS. But yeah, as this guy's just like, I just signed up. I did a little IT course. I
cut my fingers off.
Yeah, don't pull my hand off and stick this this metallic probe into my neurons. Anyway, apart from that, yeah, he signed a contract, didn't he? That's what he had. There you get.
Yeah,
Maison Labs would do it, wouldn't they?
He waived his rights to actually having normal digits for a few shares.
Absolutely, yeah. And they're going to go to his family anyway. But there'll be some small print, which means they don't get it. Right. So moving on. I said there's no new models, didn't I? Oh, I was mean. I told a lie. There is a new model. One new model, but in my mind, one of the best new models that there is actually in any of the factions. And this one is in a couple of factions, actually in the Enforcers as well, but it's in both of the corporation lists. So it's a corporation Medibot. How cool is that?
It's very cool in game.
It is very cool. So the corporation Medibot is actually we're using a model from Red Bull. So we mentioned on the cast before that we're bringing over some models from Red Bull, which are suitable, and this is certainly one of them. So it's the Medibot that you would use as one of your coaching assistants. So it's quite a big thing, and it's carrying in its hand like a bed, really, for a patient to lie on. So this is I'll give you read the stats out. It's a 1/2 move, size 1, armor 0, stat profile is shoot dash, fight dash, survive 5. It's got the abilities construct and medic. And it comes with a defender shield, which is sort of like either itself or the bed sort of being put in front of it. It weighs in at 18 points, but only 1 VP. So you might think, hang on, that's a bit expensive, 18 points. Maybe I won't take that, but actually it's because you haven't quite understood how it works, because the Defender Shield is obviously going to give you an extra point of armor to you and to anybody in the cube. So although it said it's armor 0, he's actually armor 1, isn't he? Because he's also got Defender Shield. Yeah. But the best bit is the new Medic ability. So Medic has changed dramatically from previous versions. In the past, you used to have to spend a special action to heal 1 wound off of someone in the cube with you. Now, Medic will heal all wounds off of someone in the cube with you for the same cost, i.e. 1 short action. And not only that, you also get Resilient 1 to anybody in the cube. So you've now got this Medibot who's bringing armor 1 with his Defender Shield to you and everyone in the cube, can heal anyone in the cube, and gives Resilient 1, re-rolling a failed survive roll to anyone else in the cube. So he's now, to my mind, and certainly in our playtesting games, an excellent model, and the Medic really is something that you actually want to take now. You agree, guys?
I took him pretty much in every game that I tried with GCPS, Maison Labs, or Enforcers.
Yeah, and he's brilliant, isn't
he? He was fantastic. He was well worth his points.
Yeah, so 18 points seems a lot, but because he can just keep stuff alive, and unlike the GCPS, they normally struggle, don't they, to stay alive. But having him just in the cube with you means that
you've got armor.
Yeah, absolutely, which you wouldn't normally have.
And then the Resilient.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I think the Resilient gives gives a lot more sort of chance for your models to stay alive. So you create a little fire station or something like that, put him in there, and keep your snipers or your guys with your DMRs and stuff alive so that you're putting out some decent firepower. But yeah, the Corporation Medibot, he's brand new. It's an old model, reused, but in a good way, and brings in a really different way to play with using medics. So I think medics are going to see a lot of action now. So he's exciting. That leads us on to, obviously, the Corporation Medic. So the normal Medic, the one we've had before, he's changed a bit as well. So he used to be 13 points. He's now gone down to 11. And he gains the new Medic ability, of course. He changes from a rifle to a pistol. But apart from that, he's very much the same. So he can still fight a little bit, but he brings that brand new Medic ability. So if you don't fancy that 18 points for the Medibot, you can just take the normal Corporation Medic, and he doesn't bring the Defender Shield, and he's not a construct, but he's still very good. And at 11 points, I think it's pretty much a bargain, really.
Well, and he doesn't follow the Geneva Convention. He will carry a rifle if you pay for it.
If you pay for a rifle, you can give him a rifle, yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. Do they have the Geneva Convention in the Third Sphere or something?
Only Geneva Corp follow it.
Geneva Corp, yeah. They produce, I don't know, lots of chocolate or something.
Bandages and Swiss Army knives.
Well, of course, Swiss Army knives, of course. Yeah, good for opening any tinned goods. There's only a couple of extra things. I said there was no new models, didn't I? I totally lied at because there are new models. So the new models in the list now are some living legends. So you've heard us talk about living legends before. Chaz, do you want to explain what living legends are?
So living legends are famous heroic individuals who up to now have been in charge of their elite lists. Which obviously would restrict the troops you can bring, but they're now available to lists all over the place as specialists
or mercenaries.
All mercenaries.
Yeah. So the ones the GCPS get are Major Lauren Chard, who had an elite list before. So she's actually exactly the same as she was. So although you can take her now, what you can't do is use her splat. So you still use the splat of the leader. So it could be your Ranger Sergeant, for instance. You still use that splat. But she does still come with her Tactician 1. So that's important because it means that you only ever count the tactician of one model in your force. So you can take whichever tactician you want. Obviously, if you're taking the Major General, you'll use his tactician. But the other thing is it gives you some redundancy. And the Marauders have had this for ages. So if your leader were to be killed, then Lauren Chard's tactician 1 would then kick in. So that actually you've got more command dice still in the game, potentially. Plus, her stats are pretty good. I mean, she shoots on a 4, for instance. She's got some armor, which is pretty rare. And she's got a great gun as well. So having her in the list gives you different options that you might have sort of passed up before. And then the next living legend you can take is Lieutenant Commander Rocker. So he is an enforcer. But because he comes from the First Strike novel where he worked with the GCPS, that's why you can take him in this list as a living legend. But he's excellent. He comes with a sniper scope. He's got scout, shoots on a 4+. He's tactician 2. So whilst he's not your leader, so say you had a leader of this Ranger Sergeant, so you would use the Ranger Sergeant flat, but you could choose to use Commander Rocker's tactician 2 to get 2 extra command dice each turn whilst Rocker's alive. Now, if Rocker dies, then you revert back to your Ranger Sergeant's tactician 1. But that's quite interesting because you have a living legend, a specialist or a mercenary, effectively, who provides you with more tactician points than your actual leader. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting way of playing.
It actually opens up taking some of the splats off the lesser leaders that quite often have better splats but less tactician dice, and that's the balance. By taking, say, Rocker, you all of a sudden have a Tac 2 person with the better splat.
Yeah, I mean, I often take the model just to get the tactician dice, to be honest, not necessarily to use the splat at all. Depends on the army I'm playing. But yeah, I think you're right. That's a good way of giving you other options because both these models, Lauren Chard and Rocker, are great. I mean, Rocker shoots on a 4, got a sniper scope, and he's got scout. So he's often getting 3 extra dice for the scope and hide. So, I mean, he's going to put out some serious damage. And if he dies, well, he's not your leader. So if you're playing, say you were playing a tournament where you often get bonus points for killing leaders as well, he wouldn't count for that necessarily unless the tournament pack had changed to account for that. So yeah, it's interesting dynamics of how how these models sort of come in and change things up. Right, there's only one more model in the GCPS we need to talk about, and that's the Corporation Strider. So this Strider, like all of the Striders, has changed a little in one subtle but important way. Who wants to spill the beans?
Well, 2 ways, actually.
2? Oh, yes, yeah. I guess so. Go on then.
Well, first of all, it's Survive has dropped to 5.
Yeah, that's means right.
That you now may as well fight if someone charges into you.
Yes, because you're
trying to survive.
For most Striders, all of except the Enforcer one, the stat profile is the same. Well, actually, the Plague one's slightly different as well. But yeah. 555 for the Corporation and Rebs ones. Yeah. So now he's 5 across the board, which means that shooting him actually is less of a wasted effort than it used to be because he used to have all this armor that he didn't even need because he'd just roll on a 4+, and so he'd survive all of that anyway. So it should make it count a little bit better when you shoot at them than it has done probably in the past. And what's the extra thing? What's the other new thing?
The other new thing is they have rockets and smoke rocket launchers.
Yeah, I forgot all about that, to be honest.
Well, that's because I used them and you didn't.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So these are
it's basically like giving them a grenade item, the one use, and it's either a frag grenade or a smoke grenade. Which gives a nice bit of utility for your walker. And
of course, they can't normally take the items, so the fact that you can now is pretty good, really. It gives them, again, another slightly more versatile than they were before. I mean, they're exactly like a grenade with the same range and the same one use and everything like that. So it just gives them another option, I think. Particularly the smoke one, I think that's really good because sometimes you want to put that smoke down to protect other things because maybe there isn't a target yet for my gun or anything. But being a grenade, I can fire it where I can't see as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's, like I said, the GCPS is one of the ones that on the face of it doesn't seem like it's gained very much. But actually, when you start looking at the living legends and the subtle changes that are in there, there's actually quite a bit. And they'll hopefully change how people play with them, and to sort of play differently. And obviously, some of those same abilities will run across factions as well.
Yep.
Great. So that's enough of the GCPS. We should go now to the complete antithesis of them, which is
everyone's favourite space socialists. It's the Rebs. In the words of Brian Novak, woo! Go Rebs!
Rebs.
I always imagine him saying, woo! I don't know why, but sorry.
He's actually a really quiet man, so I can't imagine him say that at all.
Well, I've never met him, because I don't have Mantic taking me on holiday like you.
They take you in other ways, don't they?
Whoa. It's me that brings the tone down. Yeah.
Chaz is rolling his eyes right now, aren't you, Chaz?
No comment. But yes.
Right. Go on then, Ross. What are you going to talk to us about?
So we've got the Rebs. They've changed quite a lot, to be truthful, and they're very, very fun to play. And they've changed the way that you can play them in many ways, because they used to just be mainly shooting, and they've really opened them up to being a combined arms or a all-out combat army if you so want them to be.
I think that's one of the beauties of the Rebs, isn't it? Is that you can play them. You always could, but even
really
more now you can play them in lots of different styles. Can't you?
Yeah, they're the jack of all trades now.
Master of none.
Well, you say that, but they're pretty much masters of propaganda. So the first thing to go up is the leaders. Now, they do have a change, and it's a living legend one. It's Sheo Silverback, which is one of the Star Saga Kickstarter guys.
All I ever asked for was giant freaking monkeys.
He's not got a tail. He's not a monkey.
That's true today. It's a primate, yeah.
And Silverback, sort of, bit of a clue.
What? That he's older and got grey hair.
Well, Silverback Gorilla. He's an alpha simian, you bigot.
I didn't say anything about his being an alpha or not. That's his choice, not mine.
I'm beating my chest right now. Getting ready to throw dung at you.
Anyway, tell us about the big man.
Anyway, Sheo Silverback. He's reasonably cheap for what he is. He's only 38 points. 4 victory points. Now, his movement 2-3. He is shoot dash. He's fight 4. Survive 5. He has 1 armor. He's size 3. He has tough. He has frenzy 1. He has tactician 1. He's agile, and he has rampage. He does have rampage, which could be a negative, but could also be great for getting him up to people.
He's a cross monkey, isn't he?
He's very, very good in combat. Now, he carries an AP2 knockback weapon, and that's it. But the best thing about him is his splat. Now, his splat allows you to leave an unoccupied cube without needing to make a survival roll to break away. But also, him and other Alpha Simians can ignore enemy models in other cubes and move and sprint through them as they leap over their heads. So say you're pinned in with several cubes surrounding you, you want to go and attack something else, you can play this splat. Not only do you get to leave that cube, you then get to move 3 cubes away and attack who you want to attack, which it just makes him a fantastic little assassin.
It means you can move away. If you take a couple of Alpha Simians, you can control. You're not getting locked in, are you, really?
No, I've used it to very good effect. It's fantastic. It's the ultimate surprise attack.
Yeah, because it's the sort of thing, once someone's locked in combat, your mindset is they're not going anywhere from there. And then you play this splat on them, and then suddenly, because they move 2-3 as well, if it's an Alpha Simian, suddenly he's got the full range of the board pretty much from wherever he's fighting at the moment.
Yep. And if he's rampaging, so he's got an extra move, there's nothing to actually stop you playing it then and actually moving.
Yes, because he would still make a breakaway. Yeah.
Yeah. So he could actually move 3-4.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's fantastic. and he'll just go in and Hulk smash.
Let me just read his background here in the book. So it says, physically impressive, Xiao's intellect is equally well developed, and he has become something of an intelligent specialist. When I read that, I just can't help but think of you, Ross.
Is it because my hair's going grey?
But no, he's good, isn't he? He's a good model. He's a really nice model.
Yeah, he is. And I really do need to get mine painted up.
Yeah, so he is. So the other thing we should say about some of these new models, obviously they come from Star Saga, but there is a new starter pack which will be out for pre-order probably about the same time this cast goes out, and that includes the new PVC Reb models from Star Saga, which you can now buy as a separate pack, so you don't have to buy the Star Saga game if you don't want to. And you'll get him and some of the Alpha Simians and some of the other new models that we'll talk about in a moment, all in this one box. So very easy to pick them up. Either run them as a sort of unique list in themselves, or you can run them mixed in with the normal Rebs.
Yep, completely. Okay, should I move on to the troops?
Yeah, what else is new?
Well, this one isn't new, but it is one of my favourite troops that's very, very much underlooked, and it's the Sorak. They've made him a point cheaper, which doesn't sound like much, but that means that he's the same point with a pistol again, so you can do that. But, as I've just said, you can now make your army a close combat army. The Sorak with the blaster is actually fantastic support for a close combat army. You blast people over and then run in with a big space monkey and rip the living shreds out of people.
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? I mean, people look at the Sorak blaster and have done for years and said, oh, he was no good as a specialist. He went to a troop. People still had this thing against him. He's now a little bit cheaper. But he doesn't do much on his own, but as a support model, he's fantastic, isn't he? He really does help the others.
I've always loved the Sorak. I think he's one of the most underrated models in the game. And people don't realise you can actually use the blaster offensively by knocking people into walls or off buildings. It's a fantastic weapon. And if you're going full close combat, it's an auto include, and it's one of your troop choices.
Yeah, absolutely. So he unlocks something else as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so only a small difference for him, but an important one if you play with him. And I think if you don't, you should look again at trying to use him perhaps once or twice to see if he works in a way that you can play with.
Definitely. You got anything to say there, Chaz?
No, I've fought against those guys a couple of times, and I found them very annoying. Those blasters are a lot more inconvenient than you would expect.
Yeah. You can control the board with them. You know, you're taking someone off a VP in the last round of a turn is just.
I think that's what people forget about blasters. The blast weapon is that they think about using it offensively, and actually it's actually more useful for what you described there. Is like denying people things that they think they've already got. You know, they run out of activations, particularly in the Revs where you've got loads more models usually than most people you're fighting. You know, you think you've got a 2 VP thing, and then you just pushed off, and you're like, "What?" You're like, "Sorry, you know."
Yeah,
didn't mean to do that.
Okay, next, the new model here. It's a troop. It's 13 points. It's 1 victory point. Sounds expensive for Rebs. Not at all. Well worth it. It's a Sphere Hunter. So it's more of a...
Fish heads.
Yeah, exactly. A bit little hammerhead hunter. He's a bit more all-round than the
hammerhead hunter.
He is. Everyone likes hunting with the hammerhead. So he's move 1-2. He's shoot 5. He's fight 5, and he's survive 5. He's got 0 armor. He's size 1, but he has a range 5 AP harpoon gun, and he has combat blades. So he's got frenzy. So he's actually a ridiculously good. He can do everything. So 13 points. He's fantastic. And he's got...
The model's really nice, as well as he's got some really cool sort of...
Well, he's also got access to assault and automatic, so you could technically give him the blaster as well.
Yeah, he'd have to give up his AP weapon, though, wouldn't he? So
He would, but if you don't want to go with the Sorak, you want something that can also fight in combat to move up with them. No reason why not.
Yeah, I think they're a really good model, and the model itself looks great. And the fact that he's got 2 options of how to use him, that's the first troop that the Revs have really that can do that, isn't it?
Well, no, you had the Indige.
Yeah, the Indige is all right, but
the Indige still
to him, he couldn't fight quite so well.
Scout, but he doesn't have the frenzy and he doesn't have the AP.
Yeah, so he does the same, but the Sphere does those 2 roles better. But obviously, you do lose the Scout, of course, which can be quite important in some games.
And the Agile,
which rarely gets used. Yeah.
Yeah, I use it all the time. It's just you think far too 2-dimensionally.
So yeah, the Sphere Hunter is quite nice. And what's the beautiful thing about the Sphere Hunter is that now you can actually, if you really want to, run an entire Sphere list. It's not going to give you a lot of options, but with a Rev Cell Leader as a Sphere, Sphere Hunter as your troop, and Sphere Lancer, you can actually do a full Sphere list. It's not perfect. The weapons team has a Sphere model,
yeah, fantastic model, absolutely brilliant. Okay, so now we're on to the specialists. So first things up is, as Andy said before, is both Rev specialists and Z scavengers now also have Hacker. So Z's might actually start being taken because Hacker will be very useful. It's a great little thing. Next thing to talk about is the Judo Medic. As Andy said, Medic is now fantastic. I was using the Judo Medic when I was running a close combat army. I gave him a defender shield. So he had the same. He's got an energy shield, he has a defender shield, and he's got the Medic rule. You stick him with something like an Alpha Simeon or some Sorok Swordsborn, they are ridiculously good.
The other thing we didn't mention actually when we were talking about Medic before is obviously the Medic now heals all those wounds. We didn't talk about the Medi Pack. So the Medi Pack has changed, hasn't it? It's got a little cheaper.
It's basically what Medic was. It heals 1 wound.
Yeah, so the Medi Pack used to be 5 and is now 4 points. And it can only heal 1 wound. So for the red player, filthy red player like you, who used to put them on Teratons, can't really do that anymore because it doesn't work quite as well. It only heals the 1 wound. But of course, the flip side is you've now got medics who are much more versatile and could, in theory, heal lots of people, of course, whereas the Medi Pack was just carried by 1.
Yeah.
And it makes it more sense, that this highly trained professional with multiple sort of things with him is able to heal more wounds than this, St. John's Ambulance bag of bandages.
You ever healed anyone, Andy?
No, not me.
No.
I've got nurses to do that.
That's true. Next thing I want to mention is the weapons team for the Rebs. People don't really seem to realise you can now give them mortars.
Yeah, so that was in the last book as well, actually.
It was, but no one seems to have picked up on this, really, which I have always found surprising.
Yeah, because in the Rebs list, they don't have any real frag sort of or indirect, do they? Apart from the occasional grenade launcher and Teraton thingy. But that's quite useful for them because they do struggle sometimes against the range shooting of big things, don't they?
Yeah.
I think you could just get a mortar from either the GCPS one or grab one off the Plague Sprue, isn't there? There's one on there now. The new Plague 3A one.
On a base, and all of a sudden you've got quite possibly the most broke weapon in the game.
For the mortar.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
They are pretty good. They are.
Okay. We've got another specialist.
There is actually, I should mention in mortar, there is a change to mortar. Because they're so powerful, there is a small change, actually. In that it's still 12 points for the mortar. Everything's fine, the same, indirect 4 and all that business. But it's now 2 victory points. So this has an effect back in the same GCPS list we talked about before. and here, so that those weapons teams, if you give them a mortar, they're now 3 victory points when you kill them rather than just 2. So that is a bit of a recognition that they are actually very strong.
Yeah, but it's usually quite rare that someone kills a mortar.
You've still got to kill them, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So, with me saying about the close combat army, honourable mention now goes to the Swordspawn, who people seem to always forget as well, and the Crow. But there's a new person to back them up. It's not always just going to be about the Teratons anymore. Because you've got the Alpha Simian Brawler.
Dun, dun, dun. Another giant monkey.
He's actually cheaper than the Teraton as well.
Well,
he's the same amount of victory points, but he's 26 points. But he is faster. He moves 2-3, and yet again, he also has the Rampage, so potentially moving 4. He's shoot dash, fight 4, survive 5. He has 1 armor. He's size 3. He has tough, frenzy 1, and he has agile. So moving up, he's actually got to move a 4 as standard if he's sprinting. So people he can actually outpace the Teraton teleporting.
Why does he get a 4 as standard?
If he's moving up or down with his agile.
He's moving up in height. Yeah.
So he can actually be faster than the Teraton.
Could be. I think that's
it's circumstantial, but it's a possibility.
Teleport's more versatile because you can obviously go through places you couldn't necessarily get. But I think the speed of 2-3 on a big model is huge, though. You're only playing on an 8x8 cube, and you start a cube in, and so do they. So you don't have to get far, do you?
No. It comes with Spike Gauntlets, which are AP2 and knockback. However, he can have the option of light melee, so there's nothing to stop you giving him combat blades to make him essentially frenzy 2, like the Swordspawn. He would lose his AP, but it's possibly worth doing. I've used a few of these as well, and they're fantastic. I think they're actually overtaking the Teraton for me.
Really? Big words, that.
It is. And I love my Teratons, especially when they got combat shields.
Yeah, he does. He's less versatile than the Teraton. In that
he doesn't have any shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. But what he does, he probably does better, because with the Frenzy 1 and the AP2, He's
basically took the Teraton Shock Trooper and the Teraton and combined them.
Yeah. Yeah, so, and obviously there's the downside of the Rampage, but with Tough and Armor 1 and Surviving on 5s, well, you'd be fairly confident that he'd have a good chance of surviving. So he doesn't have to take...
downside of the Rampage, but we've all seen your dice, Andy, and you'd only ever roll an 8 on a Rampage.
Yeah, well, of course, I only roll an 8 on anything, so it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, but I think the Alpha Simeon is great, isn't it? Because being that little bit cheaper as well, he just sort of opens up more choices. I think you look at him a bit more often and go, oh yeah, I could easily run 2 of them or even 3 of them in a list and still have plenty of other options. Whereas if you're doing that with a Teraton, you're actually pretty much loaded out your faction then, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I think the model's absolutely excellent as well. It's only one pose, of course, because of the PVC ones, but it is a really dynamic pose. He's sort of leaping forwards, all his weight's on his front foot. So, yeah, really nice model.
I actually think these new additions are going to see a move away from the usual Teraton sniper spam.
I think they will, because you've actually got some real choices now, whereas perhaps you didn't so much before. And I think as well, this Alpha Simeon, of course, if you combine him with Sheo as the leader, then his splat works specifically on these guys, so that they boost each other. And you'll see that when we get onto Chaz talking about the Veermen later on, that some of the leaders work very much with a theme. Yeah.
It's basically the elite list without it being restricted on the troop choices.
Yeah,
the restriction is through the splat instead.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, of course, may not come up in the game because it depends what the dice are rolled as. But
yeah. But
so anything else? Surely that's already too much for the Revs. They can't possibly have any more, right?
But wait, there's more. we've got onto Living Legends.
Dun, dun, dun.
So we've got Sergeant Eric Umunsa, who's basically he's basically a Super Grogan.
Super Grogan.
So he's got the same stats as a Grogan, same weapons. The only difference is he's resilient 1. He has 1 armor, and he also has a rocket salvo, which is a 1-use range 8, indirect 3.
Oh my goodness, he's as broken as a Ripper Rainmaker.
Yeah, pretty much. Apart from he's not as big.
No, he's not.
Yeah, but he's also a lot cheaper.
He's about the same, I think, isn't he?
He's only 27 points.
I think that's about the same.
That is the same.
Yeah.
All right, fair enough. I'm wrong. Not now new. I'm always wrong.
Oh, he's a VP cheaper, though, to be fair.
Yeah.
So
that was a half victory.
Oh, victory, yeah. So the beauty of his weapon is that he's got this onslaught cannon, isn't it, which is weight of fire 1 and suppression.
Yeah.
So he's putting down, so he's got that, and then, of course, he's got the indirect 3. So he's actually got 2 weapons that keep people pinned down. So as you mentioned before with the mortar, these are things that the Rebs don't traditionally bring. But you can take him, who's got a reasonable amount of survivability, and can do quite a bit of damage as well, shooting on 4.
Yeah. And he survives.
And hopefully. Yeah.
Armor 1, survive 4 with resilient. He's basically a Forge Father with resilient.
Yeah, he's going to take you throwing a good few dice at him, isn't he?
He's a Forge Father with resilient that can actually see people.
See through windows.
Yeah. So he can actually use his weapon. Okay.
He looks good, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's very good. I can see him being used. Next up, we've got someone who's quite often been used in Rebs anyway, just as the Rin Nomad, but it's Hund. Hund, he's actually quite good. He went through a few things, but he does bring tactician to the table. So he's quite good for that. He does have fire control. Now, it's very circumstantial with him because his weapons are so different. He's got a sniper rifle and he's got twin pistols with weight of fire. So you're probably only ever going to get to use fire control if you're shooting at someone with your sniper rifle and someone's also trying to sneak up on you and you're going to use your pistols on them when they're close to you. So it's not as good as fire control, say, on the Iron Ancestor, but it has its uses. He's quite cheap, really, at 32 points. He's not exactly breaking the bank.
Well, he's actually gone up in price, hasn't he? Because he was 27.
But he is a tactician.
Yes, he does have tactician. So I'll just I'll read out what he used to be. This is quite an interesting one, how we've rebalanced things. So in the core book, he was 27 points and pre-VP. He didn't have tactician, but he had a shoot 3, fight 5, survive 3. What's he got now, Ross?
He's got shoot 4, fight 5, survive 4.
And he's gone up a little bit in points, and he's got the fire control. So he's gained a few things, and he's lost a few things. And I think it's quite well known that Hund was probably one of the...
He was broke.
He was a bit undercosted for what he could do. So he's gained a bit in tactician, but he's lost a couple of extra bits as well, and that he doesn't shoot and survive as well, and obviously he's now more expensive. But he's still a fantastic model to take. The sniper rifle shooting on 4s with fire control as well. I mean, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Again, like we said before in the last class, I think these living legends being in your list means that people are more likely to look at them and take them, I think, than perhaps they used to.
Yeah, because you quite often forgot about Mercs because you had to go and get a different book or look right at the back. And
yeah. Well, so one more thing is the Strider, of course. So it's the same.
Well, no, there's actually 2 more things before.
Oh, there are. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ross.
So I'm actually going to do my favourite elite leader first, which is Adrienne Nikolovsky, who I do love. She's basically the same, apart from she's now 1 less victory point, so you can risk her a bit more. She's still 28 points. She's moved 1, 2. She's got 1 armor still. She's shoot 4, fight 5, survive 4. She has tactician 1. She has a Magna Lance with AP 2 and range 6. Hollow sight is only on that now, whereas she used to have a hollow sight, didn't say what weapon it was on. She's still got the dual needle pistols. However, they're only toxic 1 now, so toxic doesn't automatically kill anything living that you wound now. It only does an additional wound with whatever is in the brackets. So she's not quite as good at taking out, say, a Swarm Lord or something like that. She still has her uses.
Yeah, so as you say, the toxic weapons are not quite as strong for a lot of models as they used to be. They'll still kill the size 1 models straight away, but they won't kill a Teraton outright anymore.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing that we've tried to bring in to sort of give a bit more range of what you can do with toxic so that we can use it a bit more freely, because it was a bit too strong, really, which meant we never got to use it. Whereas now, hopefully be able to use it a little bit more.
Yep. And then you've got my favourite living legend for the Rebs. He's Edak Pomera. He's 25 points and 3 victory points. He's movement 2, 3. He's shoot 4, fight 5, survive 5. He's got agile, tough, scout, tactician 1. He's stealthy, so you're never getting a clear shot at him. And he's got a range 6 AP 1 weapon. So basically, he's a tactician guy, but he's also a bit of a fast assassin. He can get up into position and snipe at people before you've even took your first turn. You know, 4 cubes high before the game starts. You know, and you know he can actually be in a really good position to shoot at people. He's not having to hide in cover because he's got stealthy.
I think he's a brilliant model, and the fact he's not your leader in this list means that you can be a little bit more free with him. You don't have to be so protective, do you?
He's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he's fantastic. And he's brilliant as well. He just looks amazing as a model.
He looks absolutely brilliant. I mean, you know I like my space monkeys anyway, but yeah, he's
Are they monkeys or are they more space lemurs? Because, you know, they've got like a prehensile tail, haven't they?
Monkeys have prehensile tails.
I know, but we said the other one was a monkey when it was a primate.
No,
so
you said it was a monkey. I said it was an ape. I just think he's pretty much, for me, an auto-include.
The thing is, there are so many auto-includes, aren't there? That's the problem, actually.
Yeah, it is. I mean, with these stuff now, your elites have gone from being a rabble to actually you can quite easily have them as an elite list.
Mm. Yeah. And as I mentioned, the Strider is the same changes in the GCPS. So
well, you actually missed something out on the Strider.
Oh, go on then.
Right, first of all, they've got more weapon choices, so they can now take the Grav Spear and the Aggressor Shield.
Oh, all right. I should lead you to it, shouldn't I? Stop interrupting you.
You forgot that the Flamer is now victory point neutral. It doesn't actually cost you any victory points to have a Flamer on them now.
That's very true. So loading out with a Flamer and a Chainsaw is only going to take him from 3 to 4 victory points, isn't it? Rather than 5 like it used to.
Yeah. So they're actually really, really good to have the Flamers now. There's also some other changes with the Rebs, which dirty scumbaggy people like me might do, is that Defender Shields are now a rare choice. So you can have more than one in your army.
Dun, dun, dun.
And I mean, I don't know anyone who's modelled 2 of his Teratons have Defender Shields at all. I'm honestly not right now.
Off now and change them to your Simians.
Well, yeah, I've got loads of spare Defender Shields. That's easy.
There's one other item change as well.
There is?
Because there's a new model.
Go on.
We said about you can have Sphere, didn't we? An army of Sphere. You can also have them riding on bikes.
We can.
Yeah. So the mono wheel scout bike has gone down from, what was it, 8 points before, I think?
To 5.
To 5, yeah.
And it's common in the red.
So you can take as many as you want. So that's actually really important because In the new Escalation book, of course, there are bigger maps. So suddenly being able to zoom around at a higher speed, I can't remember what the speed is.
5 squares. 1.5.
1.5, yeah. So suddenly being able to zoom around, it was 12 points actually for a mono-wheel scat bike. So it's come down a massive amount. And obviously being common means you can take loads of them. So I think that will hopefully see a bit more use where people take these. Plus the sphere model, if anyone's seen the render for that, is absolutely beautiful. The sphere.
On the sphere on it. I'm putting one of my Alpha Simians on it.
That would look like the monkey on a one of those wind-up circus things.
I'm doing it on a penny farthing.
Are you going to have him so he's clapping his hands with cymbals as well?
Oh, damn straight. And a top hat.
A fez.
And a cigar. I'm basically going to do the PG Tips adverts from the 50s.
Pushing a piano between them. Cool. That's excellent. So, yeah, I think the Rebs get a lot, don't they?
The Rebs are fantastic now.
Excellent.
I'm very excited.
Great. Yeah, they are excited. So, Chaz, you didn't say a lot there. What do you think about the Rebs? You got any thoughts on them? Do you fancy coming across the table from Ross?
It's going to be really interesting. I hadn't noticed that they were going to be defender shields everywhere, because obviously Teratons with defender shields is going to be somewhat disappointing. But I think there's loads of changes there, and I think there's a much wider variety of lists. I think you will still see the sort of sniper spam approach.
Yeah, they're still very good.
And and that's still a good competitive list, but I think there's a lot of other options rather than having to take that or accept that you're going to take a list that's going to face uphill struggles. So I think I think the new options are all really good and interesting.
Yeah, and I think they although we've talked about the synergies of certain models, they don't make you play in one particular style. So you could take one Alpha Simian and still run that shooter heavy, Teraton heavy list, and that would just complement that. It wouldn't be weird or break it up or anything like that. It would still fit the style. But likewise, if you wanted to take full Alpha Simian with some Sphere and some Sorak Swordspawn, wanted to go much more close combat, then that would also work really well. So got loads of different ways of playing with them, I think.
Yeah, they really have become the jack of all trades.
Yeah, I think the Rebs are going to be really strong, actually, based on some of these changes in here. So.
Well, they needed a bit of love, to be truthful.
They didn't. They've always been amazing.
They weren't. They basically they were a swarm. They were a slightly better Vermin swarm list.
Oh, sometimes I hear the words coming out of your mouth, but I just don't understand them.
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to talk about the new Vermin now. So, Chaz, you're going to lead on this, aren't you? So, what's exciting about the Vermin?
Oh, there is loads and loads of new and exciting things in Vermin. I think.
I definitely got the best one, didn't I? By only having a few things to talk about in GCPS, because you guys have got loads of stuff.
Yeah, there's loads and loads and loads of stuff in Vermin, and I'm really excited to see what everyone's going to do with it. So working through the sections. So starting with leaders, and the first entry we find is a model that's been quite heavily changed. It's the Tangle. So previously this was a vehicle and was competing for slots with tunnel runners and tumblers. Whereas now it's actually a leader. It's gone up to 40 points, but it's picked up it's picked up a splat, Protect the Warren, which you can use to give the active model Frenzy 1 and Resilient 1, and you can stand up from pin for free. So that's quite exciting anyway. It's got all the psychic abilities it used to have, so you can try and remove activation markers, you can try and stun opposing models, and you can try and suppress cubes. And then as a leader, it's the Tactician. It's got Tactician 2, And then if the thought of having 5 command dice wasn't exciting enough for a Vermin player, it's got a comms relay as well. So you can have an extra activation. So you've got 6 command dice on a Vermin list, which is that's looking quite exciting in to my eyes.
Honestly, this sounds like it's written by somebody who really likes the rats.
I wouldn't dare to comment.
Don't forget, it's also a vehicle, so it's never getting pinned. And he's size 4, a size 4 leader.
Yeah, I mean it's only armor 1 and survive 5, so if people will still get killed, but they're pretty as for the Vermin list, they're very resilient. I think it's probably fair.
Well, the fact that it's psychic, you don't actually have to expose it.
Yeah, although it is quite a big model, you do need quite a big hole to hide it in.
Yeah, that's true. It's quite a big warren.
Yes, exactly that. So that's quite exciting, and I think that will open up a very different style of play that's quite heavy on command dice, and doesn't require you to expose your leader, which was the problem that Vermin, or certainly when I was playing Vermin, I found is that your progenitors were quite fragile, and it was quite easy to lose your leader. So I think the Tangle's really exciting. There's moving on to the next thing that's changed.
Just before we go on, so the vehicle, it is a vehicle. It can be pinned, actually. It just it's constructs that can't be pinned. So the main thing here is what it does is it sort of plays into the strengths, isn't it, of what the Vermin do. So it keeps your models moving forward by invigorating them, by picking them up if they've been pinned, by giving them frenzy and resilience. So it keeps the Vermin's weaknesses are surviving. And if you slow them down, it plays to their strengths and it keeps them moving. So I think the Tangle is sort of leapt up there really as being the go-to. I would think it's the go-to leader, certainly for a while.
You have one master weakness, which is its only movement 1/1.
Yeah, that's true. And all of its psychic abilities are R4. So one of those has actually come down in range a little bit. So that is a bit of a problem. But to be honest, with the fact that it's bringing those tactician dice and that comms relay, I think you don't really want it getting that exposed. You want it really to just be boosting everybody else. Plus, of course, Psychic can see through walls. So
the fact that it's only movement 1/1 though means it's more likely to get exposed in sort of mid to late game when people are managing to flank it.
Yes, so you're not going to be able to run away as easily, perhaps, as you might have done, or hide into a different piece of cover. Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and it's a big model, so it's quite easy to see most often, isn't it? As you said before. So yeah, you got to be careful to keep it alive, of course, because it's only that 1 armor, so it could die. It won't take too much to kill it on survive 5, 1 armor and size 4. Even normal GCPS troopers will be shooting at it. And the whole design of this was to do with, if you've read the First Strike novel, which I think is being reprinted soon, then by Winged Hussar, isn't it? They're doing the books now, isn't it? So it really is the centerpiece of the battlefield and drives everything else that the Vermin Horde do. So that's where the sort of design sort of idea came from. Sorry, Chaz, go ahead with the stuff.
So the next new and exciting things are two new leaders from Star Saga. So Vault Chasers or Techno Rats.
Is that what you're calling them? Is that?
It's in the fluff.
Technorati.
New Techno Rats.
No, Technorati. That's in the fluff.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's in Thorn's fluff.
He is the first
I don't know about Thorn's fluff.
So it might be worth talking briefly about what the Vault Chasers, the new Star Saga Vermin, bring. So as you'd expect, they've got more advanced technology than normal Vermin. And in game, this is reflected by a couple of things. The first is they all tend to have an extra point of armor over normal Vermin, which, when you're a faction of squishy survive 5 guys, having a point of armor is quite useful. And the other thing they bring, which is a lovely piece of sort of, I like the B-movie ridiculous mad science flavour of it, is they bring an ability called Charged. So you can choose to use this charged ability to power up your Vault Chasers, and that gives them +1 move, and it gives them Frenzy 1, which, given Vermin are already quick and already fighty, that's gonna be quite dangerous. It does have a bit of a drawback. At the end of the model's activation, you've got to make a survive test. If you failed, you take a wound, and this can award VPs. So you can push it and end up killing your own models.
It's a survive 2 as well, isn't it? So you need 2 successes.
Yeah, but it's a risky play. But if you have to sacrifice some of your rats to win, then that's what you've got to do.
Well, that's what any brood leader would do, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, yes, exactly. So, and
the other thing about that charged ability is that that's a survive roll, or you take a wound. So the fact that they've got armor on a lot of these charged models, or all of these charged models, doesn't count actually, because it's a wound you take. It's not a potential damage. So it is very much a balance of risk and reward there. Do I need to move faster? Do I need that extra frenzy? But I run the risk of, even if I win the combat, then dying and giving the VPs away to my opponent. So yeah, you have to think whether you want to use it or not. But not on all the models, of course. Yeah, always use it. Well, you might not, though. I mean, I guess if you have a guy who's already wounded, you might think, am I? Because if he dies, but then, yeah, you're always going to do it, aren't you? You're always going to do it. What am I talking about?
Especially if you have Thorn Splat.
Yes. So what does Thorn do then with his splat?
So Thorn's a new commander. His splat lets you activate a model and use its charged ability, and then at the end of that model's activation, you don't need to make a survive test. So you can use your army specials on command dice to not destroy your own models when you've pushed the limit. Other than that, he's a 26-point leader. He's got a point of armor because he's a Vault Chaser. He's got Tactician 1. He comes with a heavy ray pistol. Again, to reflect the fact that these new Vault Chaser rats are more technologically advanced, he's actually got a comms relay as well. So he's only Tactician. He's an interesting halfway house between the Tactician 1 and Tactician 2 leaders, in that he does bring an extra dice, but it's set to be an extra activation.
Well, he still gets a normal Tactician 1 dice, so that one can be rolled.
Yes. So he's got. You get 5 dice, but one of them is set to extra activation.
Basically, Tactician 2 is what Chaz is saying, but one of them is predetermined.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a good example of, a bit like the Alpha Shayo we said in the Revs. So he synergizes incredibly well with the rest of the Vault Chasers, because his ability his splat won't actually do anything on normal Vermin. But it doesn't mean you have to take a full Vault Chaser list to make him worthwhile, of course, because you can still take a nice mix of models, and just obviously his splat only works on some of them.
Yep. So that was Thorn. The final leader is the Crone Mother. So this is effectively a Vault Chaser brood mother. So she's picked up the extra point of armor and charged because she's a Vault Chaser. She's got the same chem staff and claws that the brood mothers have got, and she's got a slightly different special. So her splat is Inspiring Presence. So you can use an army special result to allow the active model to gain Resilient 2 until the end of the round. So this is quite interesting for Vermin, because all of a sudden it gives you a defensive ability, which they haven't really had until this point. So I think that's going to open up the ability to play Vermin in a slightly different way. You can potentially try and actually tough things out a little bit with your Vault Chasers with their armor and Resilient 2. So she's quite exciting. So she's another Tactician 2 leader.
I think that's again like hitting on one of the weaknesses of the Vermin, is that they die very quickly. So giving them an option of potentially surviving by slightly better resilience is really strong. The other thing as well, just saying on this Crone Mother, and also on the other Brood Mother, is that their chem staff has gone up in range to range 2, which is quite a minor thing, but it used to be range 1, which meant that you hardly ever got to use it at all. And for an it burns weapon, range 2, that's actually pretty average, really. So they've now got a bit more of an option, something to do aggressively rather than just supporting, which is what they normally do.
She also fights better. Shoots better. She shoots 4.
Yes, she is slightly better on that as well, isn't she? Yeah.
I hadn't noticed
But
that.
she is a bit more expensive, a tiny bit more expensive.
She's only 2 points more.
Yeah. When all she gets though is the charged ability and the slightly better shoot. Yeah. But the shoot doesn't matter too much because it's an it burns weapon. So whilst it is important, it burns weapons are often relying on the effect of the flames afterwards, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but like the 3 new leaders. So you've got 2 Vault Chaser leaders, then you've got the Tangle as well. They're all quite different in how they play, and they bring something new to the Veerman in each one.
The Crone Mother brings milkshake to the yard.
She does. She absolutely does. That's how our rats are so healthy and well grown.
Yeah, that electric flavored milkshake.
Right.
So moving on to troops, and we come to another change that I think is going to have a change to an existing model that's going to have a big impact on the variety of lists we'll see. And that's that the Nightmare has now moved into troops. So he used to be a specialist. He was your size 2 specialist, sitting in between the Night Terrors and your normal rats. So he's now moved into troop, and he's picked up Frenzy 1. So I think we'll actually see a lot more of these guys. And I think because they've got Armor 1 and Survive 4, so they might be quite a good target for the Inspiring Presence off the Crone Mother. So that's another subtle change, or semi-subtle change, that I think is going to have a huge impact on the variety of lists we'll see.
The other thing I think will work really well on them is to protect the Warren from the Tangle, giving them Resilient 1 and Frenzy 1, because they've already got a reasonable survive and the armor, of course, and they're slower than a lot of the other rats and bigger, so they are often going to be a target for people to shoot.
I actually
think something like that boosts them well.
I think they work better with the Crone Mother.
They might do with the Resilient too. Yeah. So I think the rationale for moving these to troops was that they're basically a Plague 2A. That's virtually exactly what they are, but without Rampage.
They were also people generally, because they were a specialist choice. People generally took the Night Terror instead.
Yeah, and the other thing as well with them is that the Nightmare is great as a base troop, but actually the way the models are available on the sprue, you're encouraged to load them out with the different weapon options, of course, which makes them very good, but makes them a lot more expensive. So now at least you're more likely to take them, I think, because they're a troop. I don't think people will necessarily take them any more often than they used to, but because you'll either want to be super fast, and therefore you probably won't take them, or you'll want a bit more punch, in which case you may well do.
I think people may take them more often, but not actually give them any extra weapons.
Yeah, I think running them naked is actually really good. Without any uploads is really good. The other thing as well, it might make you take them as well, is because now they're a troop, it's easier in your head to take them. You're not having to give up one of your really good specialists, and Veermen do have
specialist basically.
Pardon?
A specialist tax.
Yeah, absolutely. So because you're not having to pay that, there's a little bit more of, I'll run these because I'm not having to give up a Malignus space or whatever it is.
They're either 2 Stalkers or a Crawler and something else.
Yeah.
They're not that much more expensive, really.
Not really.
And considering they come with a much better save and armour, and they're the same victory points as 2 of them, of either a Crawler and a Stalker or 2 Stalkers, then you're not really losing anything.
Not really. No, you just, you're losing a little bit of versatility, I guess, by being slower in only one model. But then he does more punch and survives better, so it's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah. Everyone there?
Yeah. Moving on. So the other new things in troops there's the Vault Chasers. So there's a Vault Runner who's the shooty, for lack of a better word, and the Vault Stalker, and they're effectively they're equivalent to crawlers and stalkers, but obviously with charged and a point of armor. You have to pay a few more points for that. I think the Vault Stalkers are 11 points compared to 8 for a normal Stalker, and the Vault Runner's 12 compared to 10, I think it is, for a crawler. But the point of armor and the option to use charged is quite an interesting package so I think we'll see these guys as well. And it does mean that if you want, you can just have an army that's all Vault Chasers, because there's Vault Chaser elements scattered through all the troop types. So we may see people going one way or the other. Into specialists.
You've missed a troop.
Did I?
Yeah, it's my favourite. It's now a troop, not a specialist.
Yeah.
Which one's that? Oh, is that the Rat Swarms?
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't realised they used to be specialists. And again, that's going to open up a whole bunch of extra builds and unlock choices. I don't think they've changed stat-wise, though, have they, Ross?
No, they've not
they're
changed
exactly the same.
So there we go. Moving into specialists.
Nice to have a troop as a troop choice, though.
Yes.
So what? A troop is a troop
Nice
choice.
to have a troop choice, which is tough.
Oh yeah, I mean it's quite strong. I mean they are. I always say they're tar pits, aren't they? Rat swarms. They don't fight brilliantly, but they're quite hard to get rid of. Mainly because they're hard to shoot, because they've got very low profile, and in combat, tough keeps them alive, usually for a couple of rounds, even against good fighters.
Yeah.
And with
very good.
3 wounds, essentially.
So moving on to specialists. So the Malignus has picked up Hacker, which we've already talked about. And then there's a whole bunch more Vault Chaser stuff. There's a Shocker. So this is a very fighty guy. So the model's got large claws. He doesn't shoot. He does pick up Razor Claws, which give him AP 1 and Frenzy 1. And obviously that would stack with the Frenzy he'll get off charged. So they're going to be quite nasty. He's 14 points and 1 VP, so they're going to be... I think we'll see these running all over the place.
Shock troops.
Yeah. I mean,
Shocker troops.
Well, yeah. So that's those. Then there's the Trapper. So this is this looks like the Vault Charger Malignus. So he comes with a Chem Spitter and a Mine Launcher, which gives Veermin yet another dirty trick. So that's a range 4. You can set traps that are frag 2. And again, being a specialist, he's a hacker. Then you've got...
So he's all about sort of area denial. So people might not have used the trap rule much because it's something in the GCPS list, really. But this is the first time it's gone into a different list. So you basically shoot a cube and that you can put the marker down there. And it stays there until you choose to activate it, typically when someone from the enemy side goes in there. So by being frag 2 is not great, but the fact that it will pin people... is frag 2 might damage them, but pinning them is the key thing and ending their turn, because it might have only been their first action, of course. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of use.
Out of position.
Sorry?
Pinning and throwing them out of position.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think 1 or 2 trappers might be really strong. I mean, they're quite expensive for Veermin, though. They're 18 points and 2 VP. But they're pretty good.
Yeah, I mean coming with a Chem Spitter as standard, so that's range 6 AP2. That's and they shoot on 5s, which for Veermin is really good. So I think we'll see a lot of these guys. They're going to be quite annoying.
I actually think they're better than Malignus because the standard for the Malignus is the Chem Thrower, which is the indirect 4. But these guys they've got a frag weapon and an AP2 weapon. So, with the armor, I actually think they're slightly better.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we'll see as many Maligni, because I think these guys are really good. I suppose you'll probably see Malignus with grenade launchers, but because these guys come with a decent gun and the mine launcher, I think we'll see a lot of them.
I think you'll see more Malignus with smoke grenade launchers.
Yes, or the toxic grenade launchers. Because
toxic smoke, because the metas for the vermin is very much angled more towards close combat than it was, and with this guy having the utility of the frag too, although it's not as good, it's still pretty good. I think people will think, well, I'd rather have the smoke so that my stuff gets there first, and I can use it to then funnel people towards my guys.
Yeah, and even if you do manage to catch people in your traps and pin them, then that's an ideal chance for your other rats to run over and attack them while they're lying down. I think the more ways you've got to pin people for a vermin player, the better, really.
Yeah.
So the next unit is the Fuser. So this guy actually showcases a new weapon for vermin. He's bringing a thermal blaster, which is a range 3.
No blasters.
Which is a range 3 AP1 frag 3 gun. Now, other than grenades, vermin didn't have any frag before, so I think this is quite a new thing for them, and I think we'll see a lot of these guys as well because they're armor 1, they're charged, and 15 points and 2 VPs gives you someone who can run around at 2-3 with a frag 3 gun. So I think we'll see quite a lot of these guys as well, to be honest.
He's basically got infinite grenades that are also AP1.
Yeah.
This is my favourite by a long way. He's only range 3, unfortunately. And he only shoots on a 6, doesn't he, Ross?
Yeah, I can make it.
But that doesn't matter because it's frag, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think he's my favourite one because he, like you say, brings something that the vermin never had in the ability to, again, sort of knock people over, make it easier for you to charge in with your other models, and do some actual genuine damage as well. The range 3 is a limitation, but with speed 2-3, you'd hope that you get yourself in a position to shoot once or twice before he's taken off.
I don't think range 3 is too much of a limitation for vermin. I could see it being more of a problem for...
Not when they move 2.
Yeah, that's what we just said.
Range 5.
And this guy's charged, so if you really want that frag shot, you could activate charged and then move 3 and frag it.
Yeah, exactly.
As well. So
you could move 3 as a short action. Yeah, very good.
I think we'll see quite a lot of these guys. And then the final Vault Charger specialist is the Overcharger. So this is basically what happens when you take a Nightmare and then put armor plates and electric power gubbins on it as well. So this is basically a Vault Chaser Nightmare. So it's got Rampage, it's got Tough, it's a beast, it's a size 3 fight 4 thing with AP1 and Frenzy 1 claws that also has the charge rule, so it can go up to being 3-4 with Frenzy 2. So these are going to be quite nasty. They're going to give some of the other big guys in other factions a run for their money, although you do pay 32 points and 3 VPs for them, but they're definitely nasty.
With them being size 3 as well, you're really not going to be bothered about using charged on these.
No, because
you take a wound. You're like, well, fair enough.
Yep.
Well, it will activate his Rampage. That's the only downside, but that's for next turn's problem.
Well, that's also could be beneficial. If you're activating Rampage and you're already inside your opponent,
you have a much more positive view on Rampage than most people do.
Yeah, I do, because it can be positive.
It can be, it can be. And most often, it's actually not a problem, is it? So
yeah.
It's vermin. You're supposed to have fun with them, and they're supposed to be maniacal nutters.
Well, I definitely think Charged is going to give you that. And then finally, in the specialists, there's a couple of living legends who turned up.
I'll just clarify one thing on the charged ability before you move on there. So charged, you get an extra cube as part of a move action. So it's a move, not a run. So what that means is that you can do a 3 cube short action, but you can't do a 4 cube sprint. Sorry, it's a sprint, not a run. So you can still go 4, but you still have to spend that command dice that you would normally that you can already do. So if you're listening to this and thinking, "Oh my god, that's incredibly overpowered," well, it's incredibly strong, but it's still the main benefit I think for the rats will be on that model that's been pinned. You can now get up and still move 3 into combat with your Veerman, or you can shoot and then move 3, or move 3 and then shoot. Giving much more versatility from that point of view. So they're faster than they've ever been before. As if you didn't love the speed of them anyway if you play against them.
And then rounding out the specialist section, there's a couple of living legends who've been added to the list. There's Hacker Halftail, who he's an engineer, a hacker. He's got Tactician 1 and Dismantle.
He's a hacker at last.
It's the clues in the name. And then he brings a pistol that you'd never ever use, and then
he's saying he used
a whole bunch of explosives.
Gamer Halftail.
Pardon?
Did he saying he just used to be computer gamer Halftail?
Before he lost his before he became a hacker. He needed a few extra credits.
Dismantle that, Kaz. What's Dismantle do?
It's I can't remember the exact rule,
damage against vehicles and constructs, I think, as well, but certainly vehicles.
So he's fantastic against certain things.
Yeah, he's really good hacker. He's not the most expensive either. So you probably would only run him in some new missions where hacker is an ability like this. In his elite list, you would run him more often because he comes with his recon, which is great at 3+.
Can I just say, Dismantle is only in close combat as well?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So you wouldn't necessarily want him to be there, but he might be useful sometimes.
But he's
a tricky one, I think, to make work.
AP too.
Oh, yeah, you can do some serious damage, but you're only fighting on 6s, so it's hard.
Yeah, but you generally outnumber with.
I guess it depends. Yeah, if you're going up against like a Goblin gun track or something, that's fine,
Or a bolt.
I'd have to double check what Dismantle works on. I think it's only vehicles. It's a vehicle or construct. So yeah, bolt's not a construct, but can work well against some things.
Like a Stunbot.
Like a Stunbot, yeah, absolutely. But you'll get creamed by a Stunbot.
Yeah, I was going to say, a Stunbot or a Strider's just going to smash him, isn't it?
It's just push you around.
You're always going to outnumber when you're with Vermin. It'll be 4.
Yeah. Well, for one attack, yeah.
Fighting on 6s isn't very good. Certainly not with my dice anyway.
Let's put it this way. I think we've determined that hacker, if he's using Dismantle, your day is not going as well as you wanted it to.
Right. He's very good against Asterians.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. I can't argue with that.
The Piper. What's going on with the Piper?
Piper's fantastic. That's what.
Yeah, he's not a model I've really looked at the rules because he was hidden away in an elite list. But he's agile, he's tough. He's a swarm lord, so he brings some rat swarms for you, and he can replenish the rat swarms. So if you end up losing your rat swarms, which might happen to your tar pit unit, then he can use a special action to summon a new one. So he looks like he's quite interesting.
Well, and these rat swarms are now the proper rat swarms. They used to be lesser rat swarms. They weren't as good. They didn't have tough things.
So
he now summons proper rat swarms.
Yeah, by bringing them into the main list, it's been simplified really, so that he brings 2 normal rat swarms, and you always have 2 rat swarms on the table. So if you don't have to buy them; they come with him. But if you bought more, That
it's
would be
34
fine.
points, and 28 points comes free.
Yes. So he's quite expensive at 34
Well,
points.
it's not, because you're getting 3 models for that, all with tough.
But his own model doesn't do a lot, actually. Shoots on a 6, fights on a 5, only has a close combat weapon. So he'll survive, but he doesn't do it. And he doesn't bring a tactician dice, unlike a lot of the specialists. But as you say, what he does bring is reusable rat swarms. So his ability and his worth is all in using those rats again. So, like Ross just said, a lot of his basic points are worth it just from the point of view of having those rat swarms. Plus, if they die,
he can keep bringing them back.
Yeah, so you can just throw them away, essentially. The only downside is if you wanted to run 3 or 4 rat swarms, say, he's bringing 2 for free, but you won't replace any unless there's less than 2 on the board. So actually, it's encouraging you to run just 2, not to run any extras that you actually paid for, because then you throw them away early. If they die, I don't care, because I'll get another one back with my Swarm Lord ability. So it's another interesting way of playing, and he's much more of a supporting role now in the general list than he was in his elite list, where he was also the leader, but restricted you actually by having no position point. So you can now take a decent leader and the Piper, and you get loads of utility from him.
Yeah.
Right. Now, on to vehicles. Because vehicles, they only have a couple, don't they? But they are getting good for the rats.
They are certainly getting good. So the Rumbler weapons platform, it's never been the most exciting of vehicles.
It's beautiful.
But certainly it's got a bit of a buff in that the super heavy chem spitter, which is as unreasonable as it sounds, has got a bit of a bonus in that it's got a new rule called firing platform. So it's got firing platform 1, so that actually gives it an extra dice in shooting. So all of a sudden you're then rolling 4 dice with your range 8, AP2, weighted fire 1, suppression.
So all of a sudden you're missing with 4 dice as opposed to 3 dice.
You've seen my dice, haven't you, Ross?
You can't polish a turd.
No, you can't. You can't.
So
that's the Rumbler. So they
hit with 1.
Well, sorry?
He's got weight of fire 1. You're bound to hit with 1 dice and suppression.
You have seen mine and Chaz's rolls. We don't all have them blue dice.
So the rationale for this was, of course, that one of the reasons a lot of people didn't take these vehicles is that they're really restricted in that they can't get height, of course. So for some of the direct fire weapons, like the super heavy chem spitter, but also some of the other factions as well, it allows them to now sort of actually say, I brought a really big gun. This really big gun is really good. Because in the past, you could only ever modify the number of dice you already started with, using weight of fire, for instance, and AP and that sort of stuff. Now, by gaining an extra dice, it means that when you actually shoot, you've just got a better chance, full stop, to reflect the fact that this is a great big gun you've brought to the table. So I hope it will allow people to use weapons that they haven't always looked at as being something they would take, because these are really good guns and they deserve a place on the dead zone. But
is it a death laser?
As for freaking lasers.
Is it on a shark?
On a shark, on a sphere. Cool, yeah. So hopefully, the other weapon that comes with a Rumbler, or it could come with a Rumbler, is the super heavy chem thrower. That stayed exactly the same. So don't expect all the weapons. It's just the direct fire weapons have changed, and only when they're on a vehicle.
Yep. So then the final unit is actually one of my favourite units, the Tunnel Runner. And these guys, everybody
loves a giant hamster wheel of death
with guns
and a big blades.
So these guys have had a couple of changes. The first change is a little bit sad in that they have actually gone up a few points, which, yeah, boo-hoo. However, they picked up a couple of bonuses. They picked up an extra point of weight of fire on their twin chem spitters, so they now got weight of fire 2, which with my dice is always good news.
Well, everyone likes weight of fire as well.
Yeah, they picked up an extra point of armor to go up to armor 2, which all of a sudden I think is going to make a big difference to their survivability, in that it's going to be a lot harder for people to sneak, to sort of chip them away with 1 point here and 1 point there.
I killed one of Andy's tunnel runners once with a pistol, and he'll never let me forget it.
Well, that might be why they've got armor 2.
You one-shotted one. Well, yeah, it wasn't even a pistol. It was wasn't it?
It was a pistol, and I one-shotted it.
Yeah, but on a Sorak or something, wasn't it? You replaced his blaster with a pistol, or added a pistol. It was terrible. Terrible moment. Nightmares.
And then... Oh, go on, Andy. Sorry. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think you're about to say what the other changes to the stat profile.
Yeah, so the final change, and the one that I'm really liking, is the fact that their speed's changed. So they're now moved 2-4 rather than 1-4, and I think that makes a huge difference for them, because all of a sudden it's going to be a lot easier to get into better firing positions to then shoot at people with your better guns. So I liked and used several tunnel runners as
basically
as it was.
A better Brocker bike.
Yeah, they're very similar in some ways to like a better Brocker bike, or they're actually more closely akin to a Strider with a heavy burst laser, actually, in the fact that the weapon is similar and stuff. So
there is sort of a cross between the pair of them.
They are, yeah, but they're very Veermin, which is great. They don't have evade, which for one of the fast models is slightly unusual. Most of the other bikes and jet bikes and stuff have evade, but this one doesn't. But what it does have is well worth it. That extra point of being able to survive, being able to move a little faster, as you said there, to then shoot, and the guns now being at least a bit better, all makes up for that lack of being able to gain height and stuff. And the small increase in cost is like, well, take that on the chin for what you're gaining there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have paid that 3 points just for the increase in movement. So the extra weight of fire and the extra armor is
value for money.
Really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were good before, but they were just a little underpowered. So hopefully now they've brought them back in more into line. So I think they should see a lot of action. And for probably one of the most iconic models in the whole Dead Zone range, I think they they deserve to be on the table more often, I think.
Yeah.
There's a few changes in the weapons, aren't there, Chaz?
There are. So the main one I was going to pick out was the fact that the chem throwers have got a range increase, in the same way that the chem staff that the brood mothers get has got a slight range increase. So again, that's another it burns weapon.
Yeah, it used to be range 1, which is really limiting, because although you can move faster, of course, it did used to really be a problem that you'd hardly ever get the chance to flame anyone.
It wasn't just you hardly ever got the chance. Vermin are all better at fighting than shooting, so it was the odds thing. You were like, well, I could do it and potentially ruin their next turn, but I'm probably not going to hit.
The other big change is in the toxic grenade launcher, actually. So, did you spot that one, Chaz?
I did spot that the toxic grenade launcher is actually toxic 3. So effectively, if you do any damage to
or less,
then to not vehicles or constructs, then they're actually going to take an extra 3 damage. So you can still kill teratons and the like if you can just sneak a point of damage through, as long as they're in toxic gas clouds.
Yeah, and the rationale for this is that the things that are direct shooting are usually toxic 1 now, including the toxic grenade that they have this toxic 1. But these ones that are much stronger now than they were before.
It's good that you're the person cutting out today, Andy.
Have I cut out then? I'll be back in Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You just dropped
off now
for seconds.
My screensaver went on and it's still on. I can't get it off. Come on, screensaver, come back. I don't want to lose the recording, that's all.
It's still recording.
Yeah, well, I'll wait for it to come back. What I was saying was Yeah, because they're more difficult to sort of get to work. The toxic grenade launchers, the extra value from them is worth it, sort of thing, than the direct shoot ones that you used to have before. So I think that's everything, isn't it, for the Veermen? There's lots in there as well. So, what would be your sort of key take-home messages for the Veermen with all these changes for them?
Well, as I said in a battle report, they are going to be my army of this year. They're definitely going to be my army of this year.
If you paint them.
Shut up. You're so negative. You don't like Rampage. You think I'm not going to paint stuff. Well, I could pay someone.
So what do you think, Chaz? Would you say, what are the Veermen like now? What would be your sort of, if someone was considering to play in the Veermen, you'd be like,
I'd do it. I think they're really fun, and I think they're really flexible. I think the addition of the Tangle as a leader, it gives you a lot more. It gives you a really good sort of utility toolbox unit that can do a lot of things to support your other models. And then the fact that the Tangle's also a leader means you can still take multiple tunnel runners, which is always good for me. So I think one approach would be lots of cheap rats, a Tangle, and some tunnel runners and Malignus. And then I think you could go heavy on the Vault Chaser stuff. Or I think there's possibly some slightly odd army lists that use Nightmares as troops and sacrifice a bit of that speed for a lot more resilience.
I think if you knew you were playing something like Occupy or something, or some of the new missions where you don't have to get so far across the board to start scoring, and your opponent has to as well, then Nightmares are less of a problem because they don't have to go as far. Occupy is the classic because you only have to go a couple of cubes, and they have to as well, so you'll be in the mix much better.
I personally would be going Nightmares not upgraded with the Piper and probably the Crone Mother, and then lots and lots of Stalkers or Vault Stalkers.
It's funny. I think we're all going to take different things. I would go Tangle because I just think it's amazing, and I'd probably run quite similar to what I used to. I probably wouldn't take the Vault Chasers actually if I was running the Tangle as my leader, but I would take a Fuser certainly, maybe even two of them. I might take the Piper, and I'd take some tunnel runners. Would you?
I think two Trappers could be really good at funneling people to where I want.
Yeah, I think you're right. The only thing about the Trapper is you have to do a bit more prep in that you have to shoot it and then activate it. It's not like a frag grenade. Yeah.
No, but it's a free action to activate it.
Yeah. So I think you can tell even there that there are so many options in the Veermen now that it's actually quite hard to think what you would want to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Because I think they were a bit limited in the past with just the two troop choices. But now they've got 5 troop choices.
Two troop choices in the past. They had one troop choice.
Well, all right, okay. But now they've got 6. And, you've got, what have you got? 6 leaders as well. You've got lots and lots of choices for them. And the Veermen are, the absolute smorgasbord of good models to take. None of them amazing, but lots of them very good. And they all do their one thing well, I think. And anyone who thinks that, it's like a Stalker versus Kalishi or something like that is a one-way game, then it's not the case, actually. Stalkers can do a huge amount, and so can the new Vault Stalkers. So don't underestimate the Veermen for certain, because the numbers and speed will always count.
Especially the Vault Stalkers, with the fact they've now got potential to go Frenzy.
Mm.
And people are saying, Kalishi'd have him. Well, not necessarily.
No, not necessarily at all. And certainly if you survive that first one and then get another model in, and let's face it, they're cheaper than Kalishi as well. So you get more of them for the same cost. Yeah, so I think lots of options. So what do you think then? We've only gone through 3 of the factions. Do you like what you've seen?
Oh, I like it a lot.
Yeah. I think it's a really good book. I think it's going to be really good for the game.
I think Ronnie Renton has been going, I got 6 kids to feed. And people are believing him because this book looks like it's going to be awesome.
Well, I think it is. I think it's going to add a fair bit to how people play different factions. Obviously, some get a little bit more than others, but there are enough changes in all of the lists to give you different things to do, either with the living legends, with hacker and medic abilities, firing platforms.
It's not just the change to the list that's going to change it up. It's the changes to the type of missions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're not going to talk about that too much because we'll talk about it more after the official release. But if you listen out to the Frantic Gamers podcast when they get around to it, then they're going to be talking about the new missions, and you'll see very clearly that it's not just going to be a case of if I take my enemy off the board, then I win. There are other ways of winning in certain missions now. So I think they will all change up how people play Dead Zone. So it's a good time. Good time.
Yeah, it is.
Great. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. We'll be doing some back reps on our YouTube channel as well. And actually, we should give a little shout out to our sponsors of Goblin Gaming. So there'll be a link in the show notes below. If you buy from them, they will give you a great 20% off and really good service if you're in the UK. And if you follow the link and do it, then we'll get a little kickback as well, because then we can buy Ross some models pre-painted so that he can actually play with some stuff.
I still paint faster than Nick.
Even I paint faster than Nick.
You just paint 100 different factions or 100 different games.
Yes, yeah. I paint half of lots of armies quite quick and then I get bored.
I still need to find out where Chaz's garage is so I can go and raid it for bits.
Don't threaten me like that, Ross. That hurts. That hurts.
Well, to be fair, I've got a shed that's very similar, so...
Right, great. We're deteriorating now, so thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Take care, and listen out for some more great content from Way of Fire. Bye.
Bye.
Stop trying to make us professional.
Oh, no, I'm just trying to make us not embarrassing.
It's never going to happen.
Right, that's on the outtakes, I think, that bit.